you have that commercial part of Vietnam, and then you have like the extreme local villages where you can interact with, the Dao tribe and see their festivals. They would dress you up in their costume and dance with you
Oh my
and,
God.
cook meals for you.
All right, Caroline Canana, thanks you for joining again. Today we have a great guest, Monica, that's going to speak with us about her journey and about Vietnam. A new place that is not a new place, obviously, but a new place for nomads that is really popping right now. And obviously, we want to hear a little bit more about the ins and outs. So, Monica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I'm super excited.
Perfect. So, Caroline Canada community, guys, for those who here for the first time, we are having interviews. We are hosting like interviews with nomads and remote workers and travelers as well to tell us a little bit about their side, about their lifestyle, and everything that they are doing. So, Monica, please tell us a little bit about you.
So for starters, I think I've always been traveling, and I am currently a digital nomad, of course, like a lot of people know me. But the journey started like way long back, I think way in my childhood. So I had my schooling in Abu Dhabi, and my parents used to always take me around and, go around roaming in the Emirates. We used to go for desert safaris and, talk to camels and eat good food. But, then life came in the way, and I had to get to schooling and graduation and masters. But then I think I always had a creative edge, and somehow I always wanted to get into MBA in marketing, but I had to choose finance because of societal pressures, need to make money, get into investment banking or
Mhm.
consulting. All of those things happened. And
Metrics.
then yeah, bad tricks. And I led to eventually following, and I did get into investment banking. So I worked for a company until 6 months back. Yeah, 6, 7 months back. So I was working full time as an investment banker for 5 years. And it took a huge toll on my work life balance. I think when I was just joining off, I didn't really care about what it would come through as, and I didn't care about what I really loved, or do I need to take that seriously. But then once I was at my desk doing it every day, I realized that, oh, this isn't really making me happy, or like cracking deals, mergers, acquisitions, this is not something that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
And I started traveling, and suddenly COVID hit. So surprisingly, a lot of people tell me that they stopped traveling in COVID, but for me, I think it worked the other way around, because suddenly my company went to remote work, and I just started going around places and working out of there. Now, this kind of came to me as a surprise, that this is some kind of a lifestyle that people are living, and I wasn't so aware of, okay, remote working as a huge community, as a huge hub. And when I started, you know it wasn't a very conscious decision to do it, but then when it happened unconsciously to me, I realized that, okay, this is something that's making me happy. And I eventually started picking up freelance gigs, side hustle, side work. Made a blog page, and eventually quit my
Oh.
16, 17 hour work life to become a digital nomad. So now I travel the world full time and work out of everywhere: cafes, public libraries, um, a beach, a mountain, anything. So I think it makes me
Beautiful.
super happy. Yeah. Yeah, so that's how it came through.
Really.
Yeah.
All right, so you jumped really kind of fast in the part, the really important part. How did you start?
Oh, yeah. So I think it just happened during COVID, when I realized that, okay, this is something that's really working, and this is the kind of lifestyle. And I really didn't know much about it. So I started reading a lot. I started reaching out to people who were doing it, uh, you know, as a full-time work. And I was quite confused on really how this can happen, because I never faced that kind of a lifestyle. And then I realized there is so much scope to it, and I would have a lot of freedom to do what I want. So even today, when I say that, okay, I want to create this, I can do that. And that's so liberating, isn't it? Isn't
Yeah.
that like the best feeling? Like, okay, I can just work out of anywhere. Or like yesterday, I was at a European cafe, and then tomorrow I'm at a local hawker center in Singapore. So it it kind of, the idea was very glamorous, and it felt very liberating, but was it really possible to do it? That's when I started, like, trying and testing out. I built up the blog, and when I started traveling, I think I started gaining a lot of traction as well, and people started relating to the kind of lifestyle that I was living. Even if they didn't want to become digital nomads, at least they were relating to the kind of travels that I was doing. And then I picked up, I always wanted to like learn paragliding or pick up adventure sports. So I was able to do that as well while I was working. And then I eventually became a paragliding pilot. So it all like came into a full circle when I realized that this is something that's really working. It is possible to do this. And I set up a, like, comfortable number that I would want to live with. So obviously there's a lot of financial pressure when you are taking, a choice like that or a leap of faith like that. And I think what I thought for myself was I would set up a particular number that, okay, this is what I would be comfortable with. And once I started, shifting to that or getting closer to that number, that's when I was like, okay, this is the time that I can quit. And that's how it all started. Yeah.
Beauty. And what was your first work as freelancer? What you actually did?
I honestly just pitched my photography and blogging skills to a few properties in. So I was living in the north of India, in a state called as Himachal. It has beautiful Dauladhar mountains of the Himalayan range, and I wanted to learn paragliding there. And then um, it was a very long, a longer stay that I was looking at. So it was like for 1.5 month that I wanted to like live in a place and figure. And I didn't want to also, spend a lot on my accommodation and food. So I started pitching
Mm-hmm.
all of my skills, the blog to them. And that's how I eventually, in return, I got free accommodation, free stays.
Oh,
And that's
sweet.
literally how it happened. So it cut down my cost of travel. I was able to live there for longer. I was able to pick up adventure sports into collaborations, do a lot of hikes, be in the nature, and everything was just working out. And yeah, so I think those were for starters, just exchange of skills. But I think for digital nomads, they can do so much with the kind of work that they can offer. And you really need to just play on your strengths, and also realize your weaknesses. I think that's also super important. And just pitch your strengths. I'm sure there's somebody out there who wants the kind of work that you're offering. You just need to look for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's great, but let me just a second jump back. Okay, I gotta bring it up. You brought, from really a solid job, let's call it, or kind of old school job in a bank, etc., handling numbers, to completely different, kind of lifestyle. Tell us
Yeah.
about it. Tell us about the differences. Tell us about like get into the emotion a little bit.
Uh, I wouldn't say it was super easy. I think it is a big leap of faith, and it took me 2 long years to finally make that jump. I think I just always knew that I do not want to do investment banking, and I'm not happy in it. And so like when you sit at your desk every day looking at numbers and valuations, and you're constantly thinking that this is something that I don't want to do, and I don't care about it. It isn't that a really harsh feeling to have every day? I think it's
Course,
very
but
different.
after
Yeah,
after you did the whole thing, right? You
yeah,
learned all your life, you did like everything in the right way, let's call it like parents said, right?
yeah,
You got your job, you're doing it, you probably succeeded in it as well, because you
mhm,
chose, it's not like someone fired you, you chose to quit,
yeah,
right? The power
yeah,
wasn't yours. How you actually,
right.
get into it, like, isn't it like scary as hell?
It is. So a lot of people actually come up to me with this question of how do you travel alone? And I feel like that wasn't difficult for me at all. But switching my job and, like, getting into a lifestyle with uncertainty was super stressful. And I had shifted countries, I shifted careers, and suddenly there was just nobody to talk to. And whereas, like, in a job, you're constantly into meetings or you
Yeah,
have a peer group to speak to. So you kind of have that emotional support that, okay, even if you're running into a race, people are running with you. And then suddenly you get into this zone of just being by yourself. And now I have this whole thing to do from scratch. And I don't know where to start from. So that did happen to me. It did, strike up as a very difficult career to be in, because it's all about uncertainties. You don't know when or how you're going to make
exactly.
money. When is the next client going to come in? And but I think I took it one step at a time and started establishing it. So uh, I think for me, the biggest challenge was that I wanted to just be everywhere and I wanted to do everything. So I've just always been this kid who just wants her hands into everything. But then I realized that's not the right way to approach it. Maybe take one thing at a priority and then go, you know, next steps, because you're building an entire business. And of course, there are digital nomads who are working remote jobs as well. But then I was somebody who was building a business for myself. And whereas everything was super established for me in my job, where I would just work like 24, 26 days a month and I would just get that paycheck. And after 5 years, I didn't have to put a lot of effort because I just knew everything.
Yeah,
So you get into that zone of not learning or being very comfortable in the kind of journeys or steps that you want to take. But then you suddenly quit, and then you're like, okay, I'm into a completely new field. I don't know anything about it, and I need to figure it out from scratch to at least get to that level. So I think the best way to do it is obviously start it as a side hustle, and that's what I did instead of like just taking the plunge completely. I tried and tested out the waters initially, and when I knew that okay, my boat or my small ferry is like sailing a little bit, that's when I was like, okay, now I'm ready to quit. By the way,
all right.
but yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Alrighty. Let's go a little bit about the nomad lifestyle. Okay, we talk about like old school and your old life, let's call it.
Yeah.
Tell us about your, day in the life.
I think I'm super happy. People who meet me also just tell me that you look happier, you smile more, and that's the biggest difference that I see. I'm not cribbing and crying every day that oh my god, I I don't want to do this, and I think I'm at peace and a little more content. So what a normal day looks like is I'm a morning person, so I try and wake up as early as possible. I try every day by 6 and then eventually get up by 7. I try and pull a workout because I think that's super important. I try and, fit into a schedule even after all the uncertainties that are coming through my way through the day. Take a shower, have a good holy breakfast meal, and I head out to any cafe or a public library or any place where I feel like, okay, this is probably a part of Singapore that I haven't explored. Or I meet people who have texted me on Instagram who are creators in my industry, and I say yes to it all the time. There's not one single time that I've said no to a person to meet or to explore a new place, because I feel I'm kind of getting acquainted with the industry and making more friends. My network builds up more, or I'm seeing a new place or a new cafe. And that I think is super important because the vibe keeps changing every time. And it's great. I think it works really well for me because I kind of got bored with Starbucks after
Mhm.
a point. And I was like, okay, I'm working out of Starbucks every day. There's free Wi Fi, all as a co working space. But then I needed that change. And it kind of helps me with the artist within me because I need that creative space to be myself. Otherwise, I'm just lazing around, at the place that I'm staying. So it's important for me to step out every day, be in a different place, try a new coffee, and that kind of makes me that kind of validates what I'm doing. I feel like, okay, I tried something new today, and this is why I'm doing it, even though it is the smallest thing ever. And yeah, so I'd work out of there for a good 3 4 hour kind of a focus work that I try to do. There are a lot of productivity videos that I keep watching to increase my productivity, because there is nobody sitting on my head to, to tell me that, okay, this is
Yep.
what you need to do. So it's important for me to get into that zone and try and do focus work as much as possible. So I try and do that for 3 4 hours. I'd walk around, explore the place, or I'd probably go to a new spot, go to a garden, take a walk, and I'd come back, maybe a little late in the night, or I'd have like usually lunch outside. If I'm able to cook, I'd take it with along with me, so that kind of saves up, a little bit of cost structure. I think digital
Hmm.
nomads have this a lot. And if I can cook, okay, I cook and go. Otherwise, I just eat outside. I try a new
Yep.
meal and just explore around. So some days are just this way, which are like work focused. But some days I'm just like, oh, I don't want to work today, or like, I have a little more free time. So I would just not take my laptop around and then just go around and see places. So or see the culture. So there's so much in Singapore to see, so much. Or if I'm not based in Singapore, I do it wherever in the place that I am. And that's like just the typical day, slow, steady, a little bit of work, a little bit of freedom, and it just goes according to what I want. And I think that's the best thing about it.
Hmm. All right, so you brought it up, like you brought up two things over here. First of all is the matter of obviously the freedom of going and be in different places and work in different places. So how much of it, of it is actually affecting your, networking abilities or the new people that you're meeting? Is it a lot in co-working spaces or cafes?
Yeah, it's definitely more in co-working spaces. Of course, you meet a lot of people there. I think it's better, obviously, to work in a co-working space. You kind of have a designated place to get to. Uh, but sometimes I felt like I wasn't meeting the right kind of people probably there, because there are all kinds of people who come there. And hence I also started saying yes to people who were reaching out to me on Instagram or Facebook. So I also try and test out those methods of networking, or going to events or social meetups. I think this is my greatest way of networking, going to all nomadic meetups, getting to every social language exchange that is there hosted in the country, or an expat meetup. And that, I think, kind of gets me to the right kind of people that I want to connect to. And I've made up a lot of connections through that. And sometimes if you're lucky enough, you kind of get to also like pitch your work or get work from those kind of meetups. And I think it's a great platform.
Hmm.
So I always tell this to everybody: get to as many meetups or as many expat networks that are out there. And it's a great place to make friends, pitch your work, get work, either way.
Beauty. So tell us actually about your last meetup. When was it?
So one was like a week ago, and I have one in 2 days. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, 2 days. So both of them are from like completely different platforms. So there
Oh
is
yeah.
the Nomadic Network, which is by the Nomadic Matt, I think, if you know him. So I go to his, the meetups that are there with the Singapore chapter with them, and I meet all kinds of different people from across the world who just come to talk about travel. And they just constantly focused on the kind of conversations that you want to have, because sometimes you miss out on that when you are alone in this journey, and you somehow are, you truly are. And that's the downside of it. Maybe we'll come to that a little later. But once you are constantly alone in this journey of yours, and it's definitely not a race, you kind of want to connect to the people who you relate to. And we're like, the nomadic network just has all of these chapters who come together and just talk about food, travel. And I kind of made a video on this as well, that every time I come out of that meetup, I feel like I've gone to so many places, even though I'm walking the same streets.
Only from
And
the
it's a
stories.
great feeling. Yeah, just from the stories. And if somebody would send me pictures. They would talk about Kyrgyzstan, and somebody would talk about how biryani was not Indian. and food. So it's great. It's a very nice place to meet people, obviously. And then I do have an event which is from Try Rise. It is a Singapore based, I think, like a wise payment kind of a thing, where you can send your invoices, and they have this meetup where they have a panel talking about social media and how creators can interact. And you can just, they also have this space where you can talk to people. So it's a great place again to just interact and know professionally on what kind of work people are doing. And
Hmm.
I think with the lifestyle that I live, I just I'm not like, okay, I don't think homeschooled is the right word, but I'm not like uh you know I have to go out of my way to understand and learn what kind of work people are doing or how it can work for me, and take inspiration from others and apply it to my lifestyle. So um there's no shame in going out and reaching out to people, and I do that all the time. I just do that all
Hmm.
the time, and it works really well. So yeah.
Beautiful. All right. So obviously networking is a big part, a big, let's call it either a challenge, either a fall or a win for digital nomads. What other challenge you experience in your nomadic life?
I think one of the biggest challenge is uh, loneliness and being homesick. That's a big one, and
That's a big one.
that's a big one, and it's difficult to get through sometimes because you're constantly changing friends, and I wouldn't even call them friends. You're just meeting them one day, and then there's somebody else the other day, and then just somebody else the other day. So I had this constant stint of like 20 days where there were just different people who I was meeting, and I felt
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I need a friend. And that
I need a deep
I think,
connection, right?
yeah, so that definitely hits through um, in between your journey. But I think you need to find a balance. So the next trips that I was taking, or the next locations that I was getting to, I made sure that I kept connected with my friends, or of course I'm connected to my parents or my partner, but just going back and forth a little bit, just to like meet them, hug it out, say that I'm okay, and then go back again. So um, I think that that kind of helps. And just having a little bit of like, meaningful relationships or meaningful conversations. So that definitely comes as a challenge for sure. One more thing is, I feel maintaining a healthy lifestyle. You you kind of like come across all such great
Yep.
food, uh, so and it's difficult to control. So I try and go for a run, maybe wherever I am, or do a small workout, even if it's like 15-20 minutes. So I consciously try and do that. And what I've realized is that I think there's also a technique what people use. So if you want to do a thing and you get up and do it in the first 5 seconds, like for example, if you open your yoga mat in the first 5 seconds, you are 90% likely to do the task.
Yep.
So I try and just apply that okay, I just go to in the next 5 seconds, I'm going to get up and I'm going to get to this. Otherwise, I just don't do it.
Yep.
And I've kind of figured that out for myself. So I try and do that. So I think, yeah, these two things is like a big, big challenge. Otherwise,
Hmm.
I think it's very liberating for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I personally really find like the deep connection or meaningful conversation, as I said, like really hard to find them, like really hard to get into
Yeah.
it. You have like so many things to speak about before because both of you coming from two different
Yeah.
places of the world. You're meeting in one place, a strange place for both of you. You have a lot of topics to cover before you get in deep, right? So
Yeah.
maybe this is one of like the things that are really like kind of, for me, it's the biggest challenge. And I always like try my best. I always try to get, after we going through the 5 minutes of conversation, the small talk, try to get deep to see if like this person is actually, someone that in my day to day back home I would, have the same conversation with them. I would be a
Yeah.
friend of him. And not only because we have like great decoration all around us and it's kind
Yeah.
of a part of it. Um,
Yeah.
alrighty.
That makes
So
sense. Mhm.
yeah. Vietnam. Tell us a little bit about Vietnam.
Oh, I loved my time there. I absolutely loved it. And I could go back to that country at any point of time. And I think it's again more down to the people of Vietnam rather than the place. They're so kind, very warm, very welcoming, super helpful. Even though they wouldn't understand your language, like locals don't speak English there, and they were still super helpful. And I did the whole country, from south to north, and I rode my way through it. Took trains, took buses, took flights, took all kinds of modes of communication, and met the kindest people. I think it's a great, great place, and it's absolutely beautiful. I think you have that commercial part of Vietnam, and then you have like the extreme local villages where you can interact with, the Dao tribe and see their festivals. They would dress you up in their costume and dance with you
Oh my
and
God,
cook
that's
cook meals for you. Yeah, it's incredible. I think one of my favorite memories was so I was in this place called Sapa, and we were just riding through it with a local. I was just with a local, and he was taking me around. He didn't understand what I spoke. I didn't understand what he spoke, and we still had a great time. And we sat by this small cottage where a lot of tribes. So there are like five minor ethnic groups of Sapa, and one of them was they dressed me up in their costume. They taught me how to stitch,
oh my
and
God.
they take this they have this specific outfit which takes them an year to stitch, and it's like super intricate. So they taught me how. Obviously I wasn't that great at it, but then they took that effort of teaching it to me. And we had a great time. We had local food together. They eat a lot of rice, so I ate a lot of rice with them and lived with them. It was incredible, incredible. And
How
of course,
long
you
have you
have
been
the.
there?
I was there for around 20-25 days or so, and
Nice.
I absolutely loved it. Yeah, so obviously it has its commercial side where you go scuba diving and you meet all the
Yeah.
people. But I think I adore these experiences more because it just comes very naturally to you and you're not taking a lot of effort in doing it. It just happens, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely
I
beautiful. I
love
can
it.
I can like close my eyes and I want to like keep having that feeling again. So yeah,
All
it's
right.
incredible.
What would you say, like, is it a good place for digital nomads?
Yeah, I think it's great. So one thing is maybe in the local towns of Vietnam, you may not find great Wi-Fi, and I think that's a big,
Yeah.
big necessity for digital
Yeah.
nomads. But you can still work with mobile hotspots, and if you plan to be in like towns and areas which are more local for a few days, then you can work out with mobile hotspots and may not find the greatest Wi-Fi, like probably Sapa or Hajjiang or those kinds of paths. But you can take breaks and obviously go through that. But like the main cities like Ho Chi Minh, Da Nang, Hanoi, I think they're great. They're super cheap and they have great internet connection. Again, it's very user friendly, and the food, the culture, just the place is amazing. Again, it depends on the kinds of places that you want to stay. I've had my experiences of not so clean, not so cool places as well, but obviously there's another side of it where you do your research well and get to a place that you can be comfortable at. And I find it super cheap and very affordable. So I
Hmm.
think that way it's great. It's absolutely incredible. And the people are kind. You can work your way through things, get a scooter and move around the entire country. Like you get a scooter and you move around the entire country. I mean, how cool is that? Right?
Absolutely. All right. You mentioned that it's like cheap, right? Try to break me down. What is the, cost of living over there?
So I think just a hostel or I could talk in terms of INR, but okay, so like it would be, I think for a month you would spend like I spent like I think 21,000 INR. That's it. and 21,000 INR would be, I'd have to really calculate it.
Yeah,
I'm
try
sorry.
to help me with the USD over here.
So I would also include that I had a lot of brand partnerships and work that I was doing there as well. So it was cheaper for me. And 21,000 divided by two. So yeah, I spent like $300 for 25 days.
Say it
Yeah,
again.
that's it.
Say it again for me. You said $300 for
For
25
25 days.
days. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
that's crazy.
That's
Yeah,
including everything, right? This is what
including
you.
everything.
Oh my God.
So I'd take this leeway to tell you that a lot of my experiences, because I was working in Vietnam and I was collaborating with a lot of companies there. So it was like my stay, my food, and my experiences were kind of covered. So I would add in like another 12K or so. Let's see how much that comes up to. So I think you can do it in like at max 500, $600, not more than that for
Wow.
25 days.
Now this is a budgeting, budgeting budget, or like loose budget that you're basically eating and
No,
drinking
it
and do
was.
whatever you want.
I think like so alcohol is super cheap, food is super cheap, and you just need to take like you make your way through the right kind of local food. But I would still say that yeah, this is like a budgeted estimate because I always
Mhm.
travel on a budget. I
All right,
don't
cool.
I try and like not overspend, but I think $600 for like 25 days is at max that I would try and spend, and that's crazy cheap, right? And I spent
That's
like three
crazy
hundred
cheap.
dollars, so like
Oh
three
my
hundred
God.
dollars is nothing. So I think it's a great place for getting through it.
Yeah. All right. So basically, the idea is that this place is really cheap, but as you know, when countries that are really cheap, sometimes it's come up with different kind of things. So either the accommodation have really funky and funny stuff. For example, over here we have really beautiful, beautiful apartment, but all of Guatemala they don't have hot water. They have like electric
Yeah.
something device on it. First time that I ever saw it. I have literally wires above me and everything is full of water. Like, what's going on over here? This welcome to
Yeah.
Guatemala. It's all part of it, right? So tell me a little bit about the funky stuff that we can, let's say, if you're gonna see it, you're gonna be surprised for 100%. Oh, I get you thinking. All right.
I
I
wouldn't.
get you thinking.
So I would say, so I stayed in this hostel, which was in the middle of a meat market. I wasn't super comfortable with that. I think it could have been cleaner. Is just the kind of stuff that I mean, it's okay. I get it. It's okay to see stuff, but I think it was just super uncomfortable and unclean, and you kind of have a weird smell when you enter any Southeast Asian country. I think that's
Mhm.
there. Like I'm not just talking about Vietnam, but I'm talking about even Thailand and Indonesia, and you have like that weird thing. So I found that a little difficult to deal with within my food as well. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of tired with the smell in the food, and I need
Mhm.
to
Oh,
get over
tell
it
me
and
about it.
probably yeah.
So
So
what
I
is
think
it
that was
over there? Over
definitely
here,
one.
it's like corn. Sorry about it. Over here, it's like corn and beans. All right, so everything smell and tastes like corn. What is it over there in Southeast Asia?
I think it's the fish oil that they
The
use, that
fish
which
oil.
is like, yeah, which is, and then it's difficult to like have everything cooked in it, and it has that, I don't know, just that weird sense of,
It's
because
strong,
I'm not used to it.
right?
Yeah, I'm not very used to it, and it was difficult for me to like see. Yeah, just like everything, that was kind of weird. And when I went in the most local parts, it was even more difficult. So again, I'm an Indian, and I'm used to bread, some kind of bread in my meal, and I just kept eating rice there. So like food was, although I got used to it, like slowly I got used to it, and now that I'm in Singapore, I eat all kinds of Vietnamese food. Like somehow I just keep going back to it. But then when I was there, I was like, oh my god, I need bread. I can't eat rice all the time. Like 3 meals a day, I can't eat rice, and Yeah, I think that was like super, super difficult to deal with for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Sometimes,
also the language. So this is what I realized when I started living in a co-working space where there were all locals and not a lot of people were there. So it was super hard for me to communicate. So I would type on Google Translate, and then
translate.
he would try type on Google Translate, and then the whole conversation of me wanting a cab at 5 a.m. in the morning would take me 20 minutes. So and I kind of like I'm a super patient person, and I felt like I can really deal with this, but I kind of got tired after a while, and then I started living and shifting to places where at least the staff was English speaking, so it kind of like navigated things for
Yeah,
me. Because even when I called a grab grab bike to take me from one spot to the other, the driver wouldn't speak in English, and then I would get dropped at another spot, and then I
oh
had to
my
walk
God.
my way to another spot. So because the maps also were not specifically in English and everything was in Vietnamese. So yeah, I think these two operational things were kind of like a
Oh my
man,
God.
but
I'm so
yeah,
related. I'm so related to that because language over here is such a trouble. I mean, people not speaking English over here, the locals almost at all, especially over here in Atitlan. But funny thing that you mentioned, like that you actually want to go in a place, but you don't know how to say or how to
yeah,
direct them, and you get into another place. So it's happened to us in Guatemala City. So we actually supposed to go to, I don't know, something unrelated to a mall or something. We gave him the wrong address, and he actually took us to Zona Uno, Zona One,
oh,
which is the most dangerous place in Guatemala probably. And like
oh my
we
god,
literally was afraid to get out of the car. Now both of us didn't have internet. Like we both have, the package, and it's done in the same day. It's due in the same day. We have no internet. We cannot speak with the person. Like we cannot explain what we need to do.
yeah.
I just told him, keep driving until I'm gonna
Keep
see
traveling.
something that I'm gonna recognize. Keep driving. That's it.
Oh my god, that's
And
scary.
it
That's
was
super
funny.
scary. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not
yeah.
gonna lie, that was really intense. Alrighty. So 2023, what are your plan for the rest of the year?
I hope to travel as much as I can and also kind of sustain the business, obviously, in a much better way because it's still the start of it. And I think what I'm aiming for is to strike a balance between both because both of them are super important to me and I need to cater to both of them. And yeah, I hope I'm kind of tired of Southeast Asia. So I hope Central Asia is something that's next on my cards. I plan to go there.
You're right.
And yeah, I
Any
love the
specific
food.
place?
So I think Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan is what I really want to do. And I think you can just do like a few countries together. So spend like good 2-3 months there, work out of places that I don't know of, and speak to
Hmm.
people who are new to me. Although, like, I keep coming back to this that, okay, language is such an operational issue, but then I do want to go to places where people don't understand my language. That's
Yeah,
so, that's ironic.
dissonance, right?
And yeah, so yeah, I'm really looking forward to Central Asia, hopefully this
Yeah.
year.
All right.
Yeah,
So thank you so much. That was a great, great interview. I really enjoyed to have you in the show. And Correlating
likewise.
Canada community, please follow Monica. Check out. We're gonna put in the
Absolutely.
description all of the social, as you know, all of the social media and everything. You can follow. You can even send her a message and look for, I don't know, meetup or advice, I guess, if it's okay.
Oh, for sure.
Other than that, Kurleni Kanana, everybody join our Discord. We're going really hard on networking and meets up over there, and we're really trying to break the boundaries of the networking challenge for digital nomads. And until then, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Monica, again.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Pleasure.